Well, let me tell you something, you guys. You know, we were talking about Michigan earlier, and we're going to talk about Michigan again because Ohio cannabis prices fall as many Ohioans choose Michigan. That's right, you guys. Ohio cannabis prices are beginning to fall as many in Ohio continue to travel to Michigan to buy products at a cheaper price. Citing data, the Dayton News has reported that the cost of cannabis based on products in Ohio has fallen steadily since adult use was legalized earlier this year, you guys. According to the publication, dispensaries have experienced slower than expected traffic following the launch of adult use program, and pointing to the following factors and reasons why. 1. Customer confusion. Dispensaries in Ohio sell flower in 1/10 of an ounce measurements instead of 1/8. Yeah, I've been saying that forever. And vendor cost program rules that are unique to Ohio, you guys. Nikki Stanley, who works as the director of marketing at Terrasana, a Springfield-based dispensary, told the Dayton Daily News that the business has been slower than anticipated. And it's funny because all the stories we were reading when Ohio went launched was like, oh man, there's so much money. Everybody's spending so much money here. Da, 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 da. Well, in an additional quote, she also says, we definitely are seeing a lot more traffic than prior to adult use, but less than what we had forecasted, Stanley told the publication. The average cost of cannabis has been gradually falling since the launch of adult use sales back in August, citing information from the Ohio Division of Cannabis Control. The Dayton Daily News reported the following data that the average price back in August for the average price of 1/10 of an ounce of flower was $26.59. Manufactured sales averaged $31.06, and the average price as of last week in November, the average price for 1/10 of an ounce of flower was $21.76. That's a drop of almost $5. And manufactured sales averaged $28.70. That's a drop of about $3. The cost on the shelf increases at checkout due to a 10% excise tax on non-medical purchases and a sales tax, which has a baseline of 5.25%, with which counties able to levy additional sales taxes on purchases, per the Dayton Daily News. Towns allowing dispensaries to operate receive a 36% tax fund, and the taxes also contribute to a social equity fund, a substance abuse and addiction fund, and other initiatives, according to the publication. Licensed dispensaries are prohibited from selling cannabis products grown or purchased outside the state of Ohio. And when speaking to the Dayton Daily News, Stanley said Terrasana has been getting better prices from vendors since the launch of Ohio's adult use market. In a quote, she says, we saw a lot of price decreases from our vendors, which we pass along to the consumer, Stanley told the publication. Ohio uses a unique measurement system that may be a source of customer confusion. I wouldn't call it unique measurement system. It's still a fraction, but nonetheless, according to the Dayton Daily News, unlike in other states, dispensaries in Ohio sell flower in 1/10 of an ounce measurements instead of the typical 1/8 ounce found elsewhere in the illicit market. Stanley told the publication that there's definitely been some confusion, saying the difference can lead customers to feel like they are paying the price for a 1/8 but getting less. I can understand how they would feel that because they actually are getting less. The Dayton Daily News noted that prior to legalization of adult use marijuana going into effect in 2023, the dispensaries in Michigan were reporting an influx in customers from Ohio, which indicated Ohioans are continued to travel out of state for their cannabis products. And Michigan legalized adult use marijuana as of 2019, and as of October, the average price for 1/8 of flower in Michigan is $15.50, according to the Dayton Daily News. Citing information from Headset, a cannabis analysis firm, the publication noted that customers, regardless of their residency, are charged a 10% excise tax and sales and use tax on all retail orders in the state. The Dayton Daily News spoke with Ohio Wellness Chief Operating Officer Tracy McMillan, who said Ohio laws prohibiting the sale of certain cannabis products, such as pre-rolls, have slowed down the takeoff of the industry, they said. Michigan's cannabis industry has made $49.43 million over the past 2 years from pre-rolls alone, earning more than marijuana vape products and becoming the second most profitable marijuana-based product in the state. Marijuana-related crimes have Oh, and that is pretty much it on that story, you guys. Man, oh man, oh man. Michigan is just eating Ohio's lunch, and I am loving this story. Can't wait to talk with you guys all about it. What do y'all have to say about this?
Ironically, Jason, they got their ass whooped this weekend too. It wasn't a full ass whooping. It was not a full ass whooping, but it was a win, and the Ohio State players were trying to fight them on the field right afterwards.
Of course they were.
Just in true Ohio fashion. And this is me just talking a little shit because Northwestern is worse than both of them this year yet again. But I love to see it.
Looks like White Gucci strikes again.
Michigan getting in that ass once again.
It's amazing to me that an entire state figured out how to do the worst drug dealer practice of all time, which is short every bag.
A tenth, bro. A tenth. And people think that they're buying an eighth.
Jesse, I love it. I love it. Well, it's not just that they shorted every bag. It's that this is data about what happens when you tax too strong and you tax too much. And so this effective tax rate of 36% on dispensaries, these multiple layers of taxes, what they've done is they've created an incentive for people to go out of their state to get cannabis elsewhere to save money. And so they demonstrate two things. First of all, that the taxes is not an effective regulated paradigm. And secondly, that people will go out of their way to access affordable cannabis if they need to. And so to me, this is a very sad story, because this again demonstrates that this tax structure doesn't serve the custody, doesn't serve the operator, and doesn't usher in and wrap the arms around the existing industry that existed before they had regulation. It's really, really sad. When I see these kind of tax numbers, I start crying. Like, I literally start crying. And yet again, they're talking about all the worthy causes these tax monies are going to go to. We have to start stripping away the recipient base for those taxes versus the tax rates, and start understanding that there are a lot of worthy programs that deserve to find funding and to be supported so that this society is as good as it can be. And it shouldn't be borne on the backs of somebody who wants to enjoy a pre-roll.
You know what? I'm gonna say this real quickly because I gotta bounce, as y'all know, Monday morning. But it reminds me a lot of. It just reminds me a lot of A&W beer, A&W root beer. The restaurants had a huge marketing fail. I want to say like 10 years back, where they tried to come at McDonald's quarter pounder with their third pounder. And the problem, some of you might know where I'm going.
Yep, I do.
In all of their testing, all of their little groups, their support groups or whatever that they did prior to getting this out, it tasted better. It had more beef. What they were not dependent upon was the American lack of mental aptitude when it came to math. People thought that 1/4 was more than 1/3. And maybe this is what
because 4 is bigger than 3, Rico. Gosh.
Exactly. And so maybe this is what Ohio was banking on, the reverse of that, and going, oh, a 10th is more than an 1/8. But yet again, Ohioans fail.
I think it's ridiculous. Like, I think that they just needed to
love y'all.
Actually look at this. Whoever made that fucking rule, I'd like to see. I bet it's someone who's probably never touched cannabis in their lives. And I don't know, I think like they would have been better served like telling us what's actually in the McRib than doing something like this. Like, this is kind of ridiculous. I think that you need to realize, like, they could have asked a trapper. You don't even need to ask somebody who's been operating in the fucking industry legally for decades or whatever the fuck it is. You could have asked any old trapper, hey, if you tax your custody too much, what happens? Hey, if you short the bag, what happens? Hey, if there's a lot of shake in the fucking pound, what happens? They say, fuck you, I'm going to go get it cheaper.
And that's the thing, is that the math, whether Americans are good at math or bad at math, they're good enough to know when the taxes aren't mathing and they're going across state lines to save money. And so I think this is it's sad, because this is exactly how you support the trap. This is exactly how you do not create affordable, accessible cannabis for all. This is not weed for the people. This is taxes for the government.
Yeah.
Well-
and I think that you could realize like maybe they're also still not so smart because the ROI on the gas might mean you should have just bought that cheaper little tenth. But I think that we need to look at the fact that these people probably aren't necessarily going to Michigan as much as they're going to cousin Jimmy's guy down the street who's got, bags from wherever. So I think that it's a tremendous fail to me. They need to scrap this and just kind of figure it out. And that's a very easy change to make. Go to 3.5s.
They definitely.
I want to take. I think this. And Yarrow, I totally hear you. For the state of Ohio and for Ohioans, it's pretty sad. But there is a positive side that could happen if we actually descheduled and made weed actually legal. Is that the beautiful part about this is that the states get to compete. And one state showing up another state and saying, no, we have a better way of doing this, and people being willing to drive and travel and go buy that weed, that's actually a good thing in the long run because it's going to push on Ohio to make some changes eventually.
It'll also restore California's greatness. So when we talk about making America great again or whatever that is, if California can export in a way that doesn't include the risks that trapping that currently poses, there are entire regions that have been decimated after Proposition 64 was passed, and are in really dire straits and need that economic revitalization that could occur by being able to reclaim their rightful place at the top of the podium in terms of amazing cannabis. And shout out to the Triangle, shout out to Sonoma County, and shout out to let the best bag win.
No, absolutely. And I think that would be, it would be huge to open up a new consumer base for these people who have, now that we're so saturated in this market. I think it's also important to acknowledge that a lot of the reason why people allegedly like to sell things out of town is because OT prices are higher than prices that people are going to pay locally, right? So when we cut that out, we're going to kind of also even that playing field out. So you might not get, a couple grand for that bag that's worth $1,100 anymore.
I also concur. Shout out to that Northern California outdoor, the best weed in the world.
I don't know about all that, but
I mean, respect to all those farmers. Listen, the terroir and the relationship between what's going on there climate-wise does have an effect on the cultivars that do grow best there. And that's not to say that every cultivar grows best there, but I don't really smoke outdoor weed, but I will agree with Yarrow. That there is definitely a relationship when you give a plant the optimal place to survive and do it.
I'll just say to tag that there's a reason that Frenchy Cannoli, one of the best hash growers or makers in the world, went to that region and used mostly outdoor weed.
Well, that's because outdoor weed is better for making hash with, bro. That's just is what it is. And in all fairness, they need
resin, which is
hold on, Jesse. And they do need something to do with all that outdoor weed because the people shouldn't be smoking it anyway.
And shout out to Leo Stone and Aficionado Estates for growing a lot of that great weed that Frenchie made amazing hash with. Shout out to all of those people.
That's right.
And so when we looked at the California State Fair and I looked at flower and I looked at winning percentages.
Here we go.
The vast majority of those winning percentages in oversized representation was from Mendocino, Humboldt, Trinity, and Sonoma County.
It's because it was rigged.
Now, just like every election you don't like the results of, I get that, but it's not just that there's great operators up there. It's not just that there's great terroir or great environmental conditions. It's also that a lot of the genetics that have been developed over decades were developed and optimized in those regions and therefore do better, and you get the highest genetic expression of those plants because of that. My concern with not having the opportunity to compete is that California, I don't want it to be a ghost town. I don't want us to be a fragment of what we used to be. If we think about this through the lens of weed for the people, best possible bag at the lowest possible price, the sooner we get, like Jesse said, the opportunity for states to compete, regions to compete, and cannabis to be able to legally travel across state lines, I think at the end of the day, that gets really exciting really quickly.
I'm all about interstate trade, so don't get it get it twisted, Yarrow. I just believe that good things should be traded, and other things should just be, you know what I'm saying, thrown in the fireplace for the holidays.
Look,
you know what I mean?
Look, Jason, I love indoor as much as anybody, and I don't necessarily fall into the false paradigm that there's a massive carbon footprint difference once you start taking into account.
And no one cares
water
about that
recapture and
anyway.
LED.
No one cares about that anyway.
But it is fair to say that because you're sequestered in Southern California for the majority of the time, even though you are an Emerald Cup flower judge, that at some point in the year, you're going to get probably a fresher bag by grabbing something that was grown in a warehouse 6 weeks ago than something that was grown in a field 6 months ago.
It's not about the freshness. I understand where you're trying to go with that, but the thing about it is that indoor weed preserves better over time anyway. Outdoor weed, it depreciates at a much faster rate.
Cap. So it's all about the post-harvest process, Jason. I'm going to have to respectfully, as someone who has run both indoor and outdoor cultivations, disagree with you. It's about your post-harvest process, Jason.
I'm not saying that doesn't play into it. I'm not saying that doesn't play into it, but overall, what's that? Go ahead, guys.
We've talked about this before.
And we're talking about it again.
The thing that you're right about with indoor weed is if you want consistency and you want reproducibility, and you want to have absolutely no possible bug shit or whatever you're worried about being on your flower, yeah, totally 100% indoor is quote unquote better.
Cleaner.
But that's the same thing as a McDonald's burger. It's more consistent. It's more reliable. You're getting the meat from the same place, the same way every time. Whereas if you go and get an amazing steak or something like that, it's going to be different every time because the butcher is different, the cow is different, and the things are more locally sourced and really. So
are you telling me, hold on, Jesse, based off your analogy, you're telling me that if Trump was to go and work in the cannabis space, that he would only choose an indoor grow rather than an outdoor grow?
Oh, 1,000%. He's an indoor smoker for sure. 100%.
Jenny, where are you going, Jenny?
He could never understand the complexity of outdoor weed and terpenes and terroir and the sunlight's interaction. It's way too beyond him. He would have to trust experts like me to take care of that. For him.
Look, there she is. Jenny, we're getting ready to move over to you, Jenny Beth. Are you ready for your story?
I am. Jenny, where are you going, Jenny? Jenny has missed a delivery of a case of wine from Italy 3 times over the weekend.
What?
And opening the window to make sure that. Well, FedEx lied about delivering it twice.
Who
and yesterday
sends you a
they
case of wine from Italy, and how do I get on that list?
She has sponsors, bro. She has sponsors, Yarrow.
Shut the fuck up. It's my birthday present to myself that I ordered last month, and
She
I'm very
sponsored
excited
herself,
for it to
Yarrow.
arrive.
She sponsored herself.
My birthday's in 17 days.
Well, you can't drink that by yourself. You need some company like me. Take me off the shelf. I'll help you drink the vino.